Forget everything you learned in geography class. This is the most important map of Britain you will ever see. See all those little green dots? That's Waitrose. And it looks less like a national supermarket chain and more like a posh fungus that's aggressively colonizing the southeast. Head north of Birmingham and poof, they begin to vanish. The big green blotch gives way to posh supermarket ghost towns. We're talking more UFO sightings in Yorkshire than actual Waitrose sightings. Today, we're unpacking how a single supermarket chain ended up accidentally drawing one of the clearest, sharpest, and most revealing lines in Britain's infamous north-south divide. First, let's get to the heart of it. What even is Waitrose? Or more accurately, what does it want you to think it is? Waitrose is a core part of the John Lewis partnership, which also runs, well, John Lewis. The brand started out as a relatively small-time London greengrocer before being bought out in 1937. It's a brand that's respectable, perhaps a bit snooty, and very, very into things infused with lemon thyme. The brand's entire DNA is built on this idea of quality. Their own brand products, from the basic, essential Waitrose range to the ridiculously decadent Heston Blumenthal concoctions, are all designed to feel a cut above the rest. Waitrose deliberately positions itself as the upper middle class grocer for the Bowden and Barber crowd. And for decades, that strategy worked beautifully, as long as you stayed in the south. The UK's southern heartland is completely saturated with those little green Waitrose dots, blanketing the landscape from the coasts of Cornwall to the fields of Kent. The cluster is thickest in Greater London, with a shop on seemingly every other corner. Here, there's a higher concentration of middle-class professionals, double-income households, and frankly, a whole lot more people who are willing and able to pay £4.50 for a pot of soup. These are Waitrose's people. The brand understands them, and they understand the brand. According to the Office for National Statistics, the South East and London consistently report the highest disposable household incomes in the entire UK. That economic reality is directly linked to how we shop. The UK supermarket scene is incredibly stratified. Down at the base, you have the German discounters Aldi and Lidl, who built empires on ruthless efficiency and unbeatable prices. In the vast middle ground, you have the giants, Tesco and Sainsbury's, locked in a perpetual battle of juggling price with quality. And then, at the very top of the pyramid, standing slightly apart in a cashmere jumper, is Waitrose. But head up past Birmingham on the map, and the Waitrose stores become sparse. And I mean, really sparse. Across the vast counties of Yorkshire and the entire northeast, you'll be lucky to spot more than a handful. Greater Manchester, a sprawling metropolitan area with nearly 3 million people, has a grand total of 2, plus a couple of little Waitrose corner shops, and one of them is in Altrincham, which is practically in Cheshire anyway. So we have to ask the big question, why? Why hasn't Waitrose been able to crack the north? The easy answer, the one everyone jumps to, is that it's simply a financial issue. But the real story is much more complex and much more interesting than that. Yes, the economic north-south divide is a real and persistent feature of British life. The south on average has higher incomes and higher property values, but to say the north is universally poor is just lazy and wrong. Cities like Leeds, Manchester, Newcastle, and Sheffield are economic powerhouses. With thriving middle classes, booming tech and creative sectors, thousands of new university graduates every year, and plenty of urban professionals with disposable income. The economic argument, however, only tells part of the story. The real barrier for Waitrose in the north is a much tougher obstacle, and that's the challenge of cultural fit. Down in the leafy home counties of the south, a Waitrose run is commonplace, the default setting for a weekly shop. The cultural meaning of that green shopping bag, however, gets completely rewritten up north. There, pulling up in the estate and unloading a haul of Dutchy originals and organic avocados is the quickest way to announce you've gone a bit London. It just lands differently, coming across as unrelatable and self-consciously posh. The north has a different consumer culture, one forged in its industrial heritage. It's famously pragmatic, deeply value-driven, and fiercely suspicious of pretension. In this environment, the price-to-quality ratio reigns supreme. Waitrose, meanwhile, has always sold itself with a little wink of self-satisfied superiority, an implicit message that you get what you pay for. That kind of tone doesn't translate well in a region that prides itself on plain speaking and a no-nonsense attitude, often coming across as condescending. Waitrose actually tried to expand in the north in the 2000s and early 2010s. They opened a few more locations in places like Greater Manchester and West Yorkshire, but they never made a real dent in the market share. By 2018, they'd closed their flagship stores in Manchester city centre and another in Leeds. Some of them barely lasted 5 years, completely failing to pull customers away from the established competition. Beyond the culture, there's also a more practical layer to this story: logistics and real estate. A supermarket is only as good as its supply chain, and Waitrose's entire network is heavily concentrated in the south. The logistical challenge of pushing north is a massive headache for Waitrose, and it goes far beyond just finding a storefront. They face the colossal task of building entirely new and expensive supply lines. This turns the simple act of managing and stocking shelves into a logistical nightmare, especially when your central hub is hundreds of miles away. As a result, the powerful economies of scale that make their dense southern network so profitable completely evaporate when you only have a few isolated shops scattered across a vast region. Then there's the real estate problem. Waitrose doesn't do budget. Their shops have a specific look and feel. They're typically found in high-end developments, pristine town centers, or locations with strict aesthetic requirements. They need ample parking and a certain kind of surrounding retail environment. But the commercial real estate landscape in many northern towns is different. It's less uniform, more varied, and often unsuited to Waitrose's clean, curated, and frankly, expensive to build presentation. Ultimately, Waitrose's biggest hurdle might just be its own brand identity. Everything about it is coated with southern affluence. It's a brand so southern, they even have a royal warrant to supply the king himself with fresh veg and booze. In the south, that branding is a powerful shorthand for an aspirational lifestyle, but up north, it becomes a shorthand for someone else's lifestyle. This creates a fundamental disconnect. While Waitrose promotes itself as a bastion of quality, many in the north simply perceive an overpriced irrelevance. In a culture where pragmatism consistently trumps polish, the brand's fine cheeses and expensive olives end up feeling like a jarring cultural mismatch. Even its advertising has often missed the mark. For years, campaigns have leaned on phrases like quality food honestly priced, but that message rings hollow when your final shop total is 40 quid and all you bought was lunch and a tub of hummus. Meanwhile, while Waitrose has been struggling with its northern identity crisis, the rest of the supermarket world hasn't been waiting around. Tesco and Sainsbury's continue to dominate the mainstream market across the entire UK. More importantly, Aldi and Lidl have exploded in popularity, especially in the north, by masterfully offering fantastic quality at unbeatable prices. Even M&S Food, which once had its own posh image problem, has successfully reinvented itself by leaning into high-quality convenience with its famous dine-in deals, appealing to a much broader demographic than its old-fashioned reputation suggested. So what are the prospects of Waitrose ever truly cracking the north? The reality is, the challenge is monumental and goes far beyond simply opening new locations. It touches on the brand's entire DNA. Waitrose's success is built on an identity of southern affluence and a certain kind of polish. To succeed in the north, it would have to embody a different set of values, a respect for regional identity and a focus on pragmatic value. This presents a fundamental paradox. How can the brand reinvent itself for a new culture without erasing the identity that made it a powerhouse in its home turf? In the end, Waitrose failed in the north because, in the eyes of many, it never felt like it truly belonged. Supermarkets are reflections of how we live, what we value, and the little statements we make about ourselves when we queue up for carrots and/or avocados. And Waitrose? It's a supermarket that makes one very specific, very powerful statement that makes perfect sense in Guildford or Windsor, and almost no sense at all in Wigan or Wakefield. But what do you reckon? Can Waitrose ever truly crack the north, or is it destined to remain a symbol of the south? And is it your go-to for a fancy weekend shop or a place you've genuinely never even set foot in? Drop your opinions and your local experiences in the comments. We'd love to read them. If you enjoyed this deep dive, give this video a like, hit subscribe, and tap the bell so you don't miss our next video. Cheers for watching, and we'll see you in the next one.